policy policy innovations they would have to make, but also the administrative structures that they would have to put in place. So very finally, it's really more of a gentle challenge to the government on whether we are ready, whether Serbia is ready to embrace this transformative moment. We think they are, and we are beginning to work with them on outlining how this can be done. And we also invite the private sector to be part of this conversation so that the ambition, the reforms, the sector governance is aligned to your interests, which are also aligned to the citizens of Serbian interests. So with that, let me stop. I'm happy to take questions at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. And may I also nominate you for best socks of any panelist today? Always something to think on. One of the rare occasions when your socks are to the fore in fashion, I think. Not that you'd know it from mine. Our last speaker is Fabian Baker, President and COO of Tethyan Resources. Fabian is a geologist with significant experience in the Western Tethyan Belt, including leading grassroots exploration all the way through to bankable feasibility studies. Fabian has a history with Lydian International's Abulsar Gold project in Armenia, and also exploration manager for Royal Road Minerals. He founded the private company that's subsequently acquired by Tethyan and led the company's entry into the Balkans region. Welcome, Fabian.
Thank you, it's a pleasure to be here. Really, I just want to give a very brief overview of who Tethyan is and what we do, and I think the angle I bring is that of earlier stage exploration business here in Serbia. The mining business and a mining project has many different stages and different challenges as you work through those, and really we're just at the beginning. Miss a page? I think I did, yes. So Tethyan Resources, we're listed on the Toronto Venture Exchange, but we're also backed by a group called the Augusta Group and a number of very significant global mining investors. Our chairman, Richard Walk, has had decades of success in discovering new deposits, advancing those to a point where either we've put them into production or they've been acquired by major mining businesses. Along the way, creating significant wealth both for its investors and for the communities that we operate in. These are some examples. The most recent of which was Arizona Mining, where Don Taylor, one of our directors, discovered what is probably the largest unmined zinc resource in the world. It's now owned by South 32. It's a little over 150 million tons at over 10% combined lead and zinc. A really spectacular project. In Arizona, a discovery that the group made is being advanced now. It's a $1.9 billion investment, creating 2,500 jobs, and this is a copper-gold porphyry that's looking to go into production under the company Hudbay Minerals. Myself, I was the chief geologist of Lydian International. We discovered a little over 5 million ounces of gold in Armenia, and we are about 75% the way through the construction of that mine. And ultimately, when it's in production, it'll be near enough the largest taxpayer in the country. And it'll be the first example of modern mining operation in that country, which I think probably has a lot of similarities in some ways to Serbia. The existing mining operations could probably be compared quite closely with the operations in Bor and so on, and come from a different era. So that's been a great challenge for us to combine modern expertise, a new discovery. Interestingly, The former Soviet geologists identified this deposit in 40, 50 years ago as a silica resource, but it wasn't pure enough because it had too much of a clay called alunite and a pesky thing called gold. And these are just classic indications to a more modern understanding of mineral deposits, that this is a high sulfidation gold deposit, and we came at it with a fresh new look. Unfortunately, that's facing significant challenges now from local government and communities, so it's an interesting case in point. We know about the Tethyan mineral belt. A number of us will have talked about that before. The area we're focused on is in the town of Rashka. It's a historical mining district, which is an extension of the geology belt that hosts the Trepča district, which was the major Yugoslav lead and zinc mining conglomerate, which apparently in the 1980s accounted for more than 70% of Yugoslavia's mineral wealth. So a lot of focus has been on the fantastic discoveries in the Bor or Timok area and the extension of that into Bulgaria. But this is another part of the mineral belt which is very prospective and particularly for copper and gold deposits has been overlooked. And so we benefit from this mining history in Rashka. I was there last week. We had the pleasure of Her Excellency Kati Chava with us, along with representatives of the Rashka municipality. And we had fantastic support, and you can see the legacy of mining there. And I think there's a real will locally for this to become a renewed sector driving forwards the local economy. So we want to be a part of helping make that happen. I won't dwell on this too long because I think we'll touch on a few questions as we go, but essentially we have a land package of exploration licenses in that part of the country with multiple different targets. We've got copper, gold, porphyry targets, and we've also got lead, zinc, and silver targets, which typify the district historically, which were mined. And actually, there are adits of Roman era heading into the hills, chasing these veins. So we're currently drilling and advancing these using a range of global experts. This is one of the projects, Rudnica. It's a fantastic outcropping copper-gold mineralized system. You can see actually a historical mill that actually processed lead and zinc and copper ore from the top of Koponik. But it's an area that was never really explored historically. We've made another discovery of a copper-gold porphyry 10 kilometers to the north, and this is just early days, so we've drilled 2 holes and we're looking forward to advancing that further. We're using all sorts of state-of-the-art technologies. This model you can see here is a group called Fathom out of Australia. They take porphyry deposits globally and they compare how does our data correspond to known porphyry deposits, and they can try and look at the probability and locate where there might be a deposit. And you can see we've drilled 2 holes. We're just scratching the surface of this probability model, so there's lots more to do. And again, even at this early stage, I'm really pleased that we have, right from day one, employed a full-time land and community officer. His sole job is to inform the local community and people about what we do. When we bring a new bit of geophysical equipment into the town, I've had experience in the past where, and I don't blame it, but we've had concerns in different countries that it'll bring lightning strikes that might hurt their livestock. You know, if people don't know, then they don't have the information to base decisions on. So we make sure to inform people about what we're going to do, how it works before we get going. And we really are proud of our mix of the local and international team. I think the end goal is, of course, to foster a really strong local team with all the skills that's required to advance this exploration into a mining scenario. But what we can do as an international company is also bring in some of the world's most respected and experienced people. So top left there, we have Don Taylor, who in 2018 won the prestigious Thayer Lindsay Award for his contribution to mineral discoveries globally. At the bottom there, we have Simon Meldrum, a well-known porphyry expert teaching Tiana, who's been a local rising star as a geologist, and she's now a senior geologist on our project, and really she's the boss down there, I have to be honest. So thank you for your time. I think we'll be doing a few brief questions now. Thank you.
It
Right. Thanks very much, Fabian. So we do, according to the clock here, have 12 minutes for questions, which is wonderful. My first one is actually to Stephen, a quick one. The research that you mentioned that the World Bank has undertaken, is that publicly available?
No.
Are there any plans to?
It's a typical World Bank document that's called a mining diagnostic, some governance diagnostic, and it's done for the government. So we've encouraged them to release it. There might be parts of it that are released, but it's part of the dialogue we have.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Very interesting. Anyway, I made copious notes, so thank you. Question for Srdjan, and then on to the other guys here. We talk about technological development and innovation, and I think it's really difficult to appreciate the pace of change. I think the only thing for sure is we're probably going to be underestimating that pace. How does that affect the mining sector?
Well, probably would be the best if I give like 2 or 3 examples. How does it affect day-to-day operations? Firstly, over the last couple of years, big data and artificial intelligence have provided for predictive analytics, which in turn helps to make safe and better decisions because they require full, accurate, and timely information. So this is really big leap forward in our industry. Secondly, I may mention that dangerous and labor-extensive extractive processes have been transferred into remotely operating and managing machines and processes. And the third one, which is a big one, it's a digital twin concept, where you basically create virtual model of physical assets, and it can range from simple cranes to the whole mines and the whole factories. It takes time to develop, it takes investment, but the possibilities out of those models are virtually limitless, and that's where Rio Tinto is heading now.
Okay, thank you. And Stephen, do you have a view on that from your study? No. Fabian, anything to add?
Yeah, well, from a slightly different angle, I think disruption can be viewed on a short-term and a long-term basis. And the thing with the mining business is it's long-term. It takes a long time to find a good deposit, to then advance it through all the stages, to even then be permitted construction and eventually operate. So I think it's important to have an understanding and a dialogue with government, with communities around you, to make sure that you're basing decisions primarily on those long-term disruptions. I mean, case in point, the copper market right now, the price of copper is quite depressed. Mm-hmm. But I think most people would agree we're heading towards an increasingly electric world, and copper production is going to be required, and therefore, just because copper price is a bit depressed today, and it might have a short-term impact on how a company receives investment or support for its project, I think company and the communities around it and the governments need to have that long-term view to ensure that you are ready when these long-term impacts come into play. If you try to react on the flavor of the month, you're always going to be late.
Absolutely, and I was struck actually at one thing that you did mention, Stephen, around the training for high-tech skills, presumably aligned to the change in demand for skills in the mining sector as technological improvements come into play.
So, I mean, we actually think, and the government does as well, believe that this is important because we have overall, not just in the mining sector, but in other sectors, quite a shortage of skills. We have a bit of a contradiction because we have highly skilled Serbians, but they leave, and so we don't have enough workers in a range of industries. So one of the vision we've talked about with the government is ensuring that in the new mining regime that there is encouragement, resources put into upscaling the skills of Serbians in this sector, but also building expectations that the investors will also put resources into scaling up skills of Serbians in the industry, but even more importantly, open opportunities that propel that. So, for example, laboratories that can be established here, employ people here. If we think about the value addition, there could be a whole set of opportunities where new skills are demanded, but also new skills are produced.
Thank you. Fabian, I'd just like to latch on to a conversation that we actually had in Heathrow before we got onto the plane about European mining and stakeholders and neighbouring communities, the complexities of those relationships, and you mentioned the number of issues that you'd seen as you look around Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the general will is that people and governments want to see and understand that mining is an important part of our economy. But when I look around the wider Europe, there are countless projects who are facing problems, having made significant investments to actually get to that final hurdle and be in production. You put up the slide before showing those technical and non-technical challenges. And, you know, the technical ones, the solution is fairly obvious, you know, good education, bringing the right people in, having the right approach. But I think what really needs an improvement is the non-technical ones. I think the key is dialogue between companies and local stakeholders and government. You know, I have to say, when I look around at Amulsar, the project that I was involved in Armenia, and countless others, there are times where a political agenda might be dressed up as something else, and I think, you know, it's very important that distinctions are made. That are these genuine concerns, and are companies dealing with them as they should, and is a local government genuinely supportive of mining and maintaining its position through that, and I think, you know, companies are falling down at hurdles. And it's probably, you know, there's trust issues as well. I think it's quite a significant thing for a mine to open in a country. So the company needs to gain trust, and that's key.
Thank you. And Srdjan, you're immersed in one of the largest and most complex mine projects in the region. What's your perspective?
What I mentioned in the presentation, maybe I could... What is important here to understand